everybody, it's Lady Kayla here, and today I am going to do another book review. I know I am terribly behind. I finished this book quite some time ago, a couple months back, and I just haven't been able to get a book review out, so I'm excited. And today we're going to be reviewing American Gods by Neil Gaiman, and I know I've been reading a lot of Gaiman lately, and I am just taken, and I think my next book that I read is also going to be a collab with Gaiman in it. So yeah, let's get started. American Gods is a book about, well, you guessed it, American gods, but it is about like gods that are all across the world that came into America, which makes sense since so many people came into America. It's a giant melting pot, and these are the American versions of gods, and what Americans kind of have changed about the gods, how they've applied the theological worship of their gods in context of America, and how America has grown and adapted and changed over the years. And there is a battle between these old gods and the gods that are up and rising from American culture, such as, you know, media and capitalism and the latest technology, stuff like that. And so I thought it was absolutely amazing in concept, and so I started reading it. The only previous information I had about American Gods was the TV show, and I didn't watch it all, but I did watch quite a few episodes, and I know it's still ongoing. But I was immediately drawn by the concept, and so I was excited about the book. However, the book has a completely different tone than the show. A lot of the setup and characters are very similar, and I think that they did an excellent job, and I'm really happy with the show. But I'm also really happy with this book despite the tone change. Now, I want to talk about this, so here's where I'm going to get a little bit more in depth with my review. I thought it was interesting, and it kind of started me off slow because Shadow, who is the main character, has this very kind of slow, quiet aspect about himself. He's not very animated, and he kind of really just goes with the flow as things are happening and doesn't really have too much of an opinion as his world gets more and more crazy. Even though he's going through hell, especially at the beginning, his feelings and emotions are very sedated, and it's very strange, and I was having trouble, you know, figuring out exactly what was happening and why this character seemed so flat. But as the story continued, I understood that there was a reason for that, and it actually went really well with the book. I feel like he, being such a slow character, really goes into exploring what Shadow is in context of American gods. And I really want to talk about Shadow, and I'm sure there's tons of different theories, but I believe since it's an entire book about American gods and Shadow ends up being, spoiler alert, a demigod, pretty much the son of a god and a human, I feel like he qualifies to represent something just as much as the rest of the gods in the book. And even though the book was kind of cheeky, little twist with the gods being tricksters and all, I still feel like the gods were meant to represent so much, and I think Neil Gaiman wanted us to explore that, because he doesn't spoon feed you exactly what the gods represent, but you can infer based on what you know about America, and especially have a little bit more of a clue in if you studied theology or are somewhat aware of theology around the world. So Shadow, I was like, he has to represent something. And I think because he is a human and deity mixed together, it goes with, you know, the very American idea that we, even if we have faith, we are very aware of our own spiritual journeys. Americans tend to go their own way, even with their faith, and they tend to adapt it to their own humanity and the humanity that develops as culture develops. And I think he's a very good representation of being human and, you know, being divine. And I mean that in a sense of our own journeys with our faith or our spirituality or our beliefs. And that's not just, you know, typical theological sense. You know, we also, you know, have these feelings for science and for technology and for stuff like that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a deity in the sense that we view it, and us being human in our own human journeys, trying to get better at whatever it is that we find our ultimate goal is. And I feel like, you know, Shadow, all throughout the book, he gets asked multiple things about his background. He gets asked if he's Native American. He gets asked if he's African American. His heritage or his race and his background gets brought up a lot, and he doesn't answer, he doesn't know. And I think that's really awesome, and also represents America in some sense, because we are a melting pot, and most of us don't know what our history is when we get straight down into it. Some of us have lost our roots. Some of us have just been totally disconnected from our roots and starting up something new here in America. And I feel like that's what Shadow represents, especially in the beginning, where he loses everything and has to kind of start afresh in this new world. And if that doesn't represent what America is, so many people coming here and starting a new life and a new world, I don't know what is. And I think that's really, really amazing. And I think the representations of traditional deities are amazing, because they aren't representations of what they are in their original sense. They are what they've become here in America, and what Americans have shifted their deities to be as, you know, America developed and as we needed them to change for us. And here, the American gods, a lot of them, you know, despite being who they are, you know, you still have your tricksters who are kind of like self-absorbed and whatnot, but they still are here for us. They are still here for what Americans need, and they still are the deities that people have developed for themselves. So I don't think it's a knock on traditional values and theological beliefs. And so I think that this book is just this great exploration, and there's so many different ways and routes that you can go and kind of explore what these deities end up meaning, what this whole journey ends up meaning. It gets kind of weird at some points, and I think multiple reviews have described it as a horror, and I don't really think it's horror, but I don't really know if that's a certain literary genre that I'm misinterpreting, because horror implies to me scary, or at least suspenseful in like a kind of scary sense, and I was not getting that from this at all. And despite the kind of haunting way that Shadow kind of goes about his world, I'm not really getting any horror from it, but I do feel like that whole aspect about Shadow is kind of eerie, because you're used to a character that is way more animated, that is going through way more emotions than what is happening here. And I think it actually really worked for this book. It made it really unique, and I have to give it thumbs up because it's really great. Sorry for my Valley Girl accent, I will say and like every other sentence, but I hope you guys read this, and if you have already, leave in the comments below what you think, what you got from this book, and I will gladly have the conversation with you. I have to go now, and I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.